What's going on, everyone? Vampyr Gaming here, and today we're back with another video. In today's video, if you have not heard the news, at the most recent Japan Championship Series, which is their finals for determining their players for the World Championship Finals in Japan, they typically reveal cards and a little bit of news. They gave the news, and again, I'm going to drive this home the entire video, so please do me a favor, just try to listen and understand. Thank you. This is going to be for Asia. Okay, this is going to be for the Asian version of the card game. Is it the East? Is it the East? I'm directly challenged. I'm Zoro. I think it's the East, and then we're the West. But it's going to be for Asia, and it typically cascades down to the English TCG once we enter that format, which they will be going into OP11 format. We are currently in OP09. This list is going to be effective likely OP11, so we are going to have to look ahead to really fully understand the value. And if you're not one who's like paid attention to the meta over there, which is completely okay, I will do my best to fill you in and kind of cover everything, but there will be cards you may not be familiar with and how they interact. Just wanted to set that up. In today's video, we're going to talk about what might be here. They confirmed some form of ban announcement / update, so it could go either way. We could see bans, we could just see unbans. We could see bans, we could see unbans. You know, not bans to make our dance, just bans and updates, maybe. But we're going to talk about that and just overall the cards. If we do see a ban list, what cards I think will be on there. And if you're new to the channel, I'm Vampyr Gaming. I am a competitive One Piece player. I create One Piece content for everyday viewers like you, be it, you know, content like this or competitive content, how to pilot your decks, deck lists, things like that, just all over. If that interests you, if you could do me a favor before we jump in, go ahead and hit that subscribe button and let's get into it. So let's talk bans. Anel's gotta go. Anel's gotta go. Real ones know Rage use tier 0. Rage is the best deck. She's gotta go. They got support in OP11. Gotta go. Get out of here. No, but really, haha, JK. So, first up, we got Mr. 10 cards in hand himself. We're talking bans right now. I think it's a quite talked about card. It's Gum Gum Giant. And so the way that I've always viewed Gum Gum Giant, because on the surface it seems like a regular card. But you got to remember, your opponent leaves 1 down up, 6 cards in hand. What could be mathematical lethal is not. You got to think of it as they have 8 cards in hand, because they're going to pitch 2, counter out of 1, and they're right back to 6. So they really had 8, because they get to draw 2 more. So you're doing math for 8 cards in hand, plus guaranteed 4K in counter. A lot of people, a lot of debates on this, because you don't lose too much value. And if you are at 10 Don, you lose 0 value, and that's the only time people are using this. And I don't think it's necessary. These are my thoughts. I don't think it's necessary. I understand the complaints. You know, imagine if Whitebeard had just had this in red. It would be absolutely phenomenal. But he doesn't. And it's just like, it's one of those things, though. I think there are a lot more powerful things in Purple Luffy. And I think that this is just a really good card for Purple overall. And to use 2, you know, you technically only go to 8. Like, it does have a small drawback to use multiple. With you use them each turn, you really get the maximum amount of value out of it. But I just really think, one, Purple Luffy doesn't have the strongest impact. And it is, of course, leader locked to the Straw Hat type. There is the EBO2 Luffy, Gurple Luffy, for those familiar, that this does hold a stronger argument for, because he is currently, and we'll talk about him as a whole later, but he is currently dominating in EBO2, but there's a whole OP11 coming in 1 month, and so it's really like, when we got the first structure decks, Red Purple Luffy was arguably the best deck available. Johnny won, I believe, 2 full events piloting that deck, and really just solved it, figured it out, and realized it was the best leader hands down. And we could just be seeing that for a brief moment here in EBO2 with it coming. So it's really hard to tell, but it does make a stronger argument for this card. I think where we are in OP09 doesn't make sense. I think there are better cards still to hit when it comes to Gurple Luffy, but only time will really tell. But could it be there? Sure, but I personally don't think it makes sense. Now let's talk black and yellow, black and yellow, black and yellow. Black and yellow Luffy, I think, is a super talked about topic and a very unliked deck. And every single time, everybody's like, well, Blackbeard this, and he's not good that. And I've said this deck is phenomenal, and he's continually showed up since the dawn of time because we, in the English TCG, love this leader. And the biggest thing is, of course, your opponent changed 3 geckos. If you set yourself up right, you just don't lose. Like, how can you lose with 3 geckos? And you just go like 9, 9, 9, a bunch. And it's like, who can live through that? Nobody, right? So I think it presents a problem. I think, again, Blackbeard gets even stronger, OP10. And it's like, do we still see this Luffy? Because we introduced Kuzan, and we're going to talk about him later in this video as well. But I think it's really hard. I don't think it makes sense to hit the leader. I do think the leader is really strong. And then, of course, the biggest piece in it is Gecko Moria. And Gecko, of course, you get to play 20 Dawn worth of characters. 22. You get a 22 Dawn turn, in essence, which is incredibly strong. And it has the strongest Gecko Moria. Outside of that, we've seen Smoker, and we've seen a lot of different things. Just not playing Gecko, and we've seen, it feels like, less and less Lucci. Which is my argument to not cut Gecko. OP10, he kind of shows up, but he doesn't show up as much. I think, a big driver of that could be Blackbeard. And, it could be the solution. It solves black and yellow. And it will solve Lucci, but Lucci isn't currently a problem. Some people might find Lucci a problem here now, but if we look at, you look at Eggman events, the size of pie of Lucci taking events is incredibly small in comparison to everything else. So take that for what it is worth, I don't see it personally. And, he's strongest in black and yellow. And if you take this away, you, of course, kill black and yellow. I just don't see him. They're okay, but they're just such a bigger timer. And I don't think they have the aggro to end games without chaining, one Gecko. But, people win without Gecko. I think it's too far gone. And I think as we continue, OP11, they're really just we're just going to print some crazy cards. I think Gecko, as we get into OP11, isn't going to be as impactful. And let me know in the comments below, what card do you think is going to be on the ban list? Or what card do you think is going to be unbanned? But I don't think Gecko's going to make it. Eustace, Captain Mid. No, I don't think he's going to get banned. Smoker wins one event. This card has been around since OP11. And it is the best card in green, and green is still, the most fair color. Red's the weakest, but green is, the most fair color. So, do with that what you will. I don't think he's going to be banned. And then we've got the Flamingo Man. Contrary to popular belief, he did not eat the mingo fruit. Apparently, he's a string man or something. I don't know. But we got the Flamingo Man. I think this, of course, if any leader was to be adjusted, I think it's him. The biggest thing is that this leader gets aggro while also never losing value to play body. So you don't lose any card value, and you get to be the aggressor. And then you, of course, see cards. We're going to talk about a whole suite of cards. We're going to talk about all the cards here that I think could be banned from Doflamingo. Does this mean all of them? Absolutely not. Could you just fix the leader? Absolutely. But I think it's important because he gets to be aggressive, play bodies without losing value. And then even gaining. So if you hit a Weevil, you just drew one. You swung 7 to draw one and play a body. No other deck generates value to that manner that Doflamingo does. And we see 2 crucial pieces introduced in the structure decks that really change this deck and really set it over the top. So if I thought anything could be adjusted, I think it's Doflamingo. Again, there is the Gurple Luffy. We cannot forget the Gurple Luffy. The green-purple Luffy is incredibly strong. Draw 5 pudding. Put your whole hand back. Draw 5. Why? So, I don't think pudding should be hit. I think the problem is Doflamingo, because no other deck can do what Doflamingo does, then prompt you to get puddinged. Pudding came out OP06. We played OP07, OP08 just fine. Didn't care about pudding. We played OP06, OP07, OP08 just fine. Didn't care about pudding. Doflamingo puts on so much aggression and goes so wide that when you pudding somebody, then you turn all your body sideways. It creates a huge impact to the game to where it's unfair. Then there's BY, but this is the only blue counter to BY. So with BY as good as it is, I think pudding can stand. If you hit BY, maybe, there's an argument for pudding. But we lived through formats with pudding just fine. I think, again, the argument is I think it's Doflamingo that makes this card not great. Not great. Because, in blue, people just played around the pudding anyways, and it was fine. But, again, Doflamingo does something that none of these other decks can do. They go super wide. They're like Jinbei Weevil. And then they're like, oh, I'll play pudding, and then swing a bunch of sevens. And you're like, what just happened? And you're like, 1 life, 6 cards in hand. And you have just so little value that you lose because of pudding. So, I think Doflamingo is the heart of the problem. I don't think pudding is. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. But I don't think pudding will get hit. Here we go. This is the guy. This is him. Bounce law. I'll bounce my law to bounce your law, to play your law to bounce my law, and then I'll play my law to bounce your law. If you've seen any Doflamingo mirror match, that is the commentary. But this card enables, again, Doffy can swing 7, pay 1, and then bounce your blocker for 1 Don. No card can remove a blocker for 1 Don besides Seaquake, and it has to be a specific kind of blocker. This card can remove a 4-cross blocker by swinging with your leader. It also creates a value engine for the user. I wish that this card was if this card was playable in Marco, I think Marco would be a phenomenal deck because you can return cards to your hand to regenerate hand value. So this is a huge value card while also being an aggressive card and a control card. This card is the most versatile card in Doflamingo at the moment, in my opinion. And I think this card could be hit. I think it makes sense. It's locked to 7 Warlords, which really doesn't matter because it's the #1 deck that can abuse it. You might as well have gave it to all of blue because no one can abuse it like he can. But I think this law can be hit. We got the first Son of the Sea, Jinbei. The card that enables Doflamingo to go so wide and so fast. Your opponent sees 2 Jinbeis. They go swing 7 blind, rip Jinbei, play Weevil. Next one, play Jinbei, play Weevil. You're like, oh, you have a full board on your 3rd turn. No other deck can do that. Except for Boa, I guess, but they weren't swinging 7s on the way there. Jinbei. Do I think Jinbei is the absolute answer? I do not. Do I think it helps? Absolutely. But I think the other cards, I really like Jinbei as a concept because blue doesn't have Gecko Moria. And, as long as Gecko Moria exists, I think, every other deck, Red, Bandai, you listening? Red needs something like this. So I would not like to see Jinbei hit, but I could understand it. Now, we're talking about hits. A lot of people think that I don't believe Japan will limit any cards. I don't think they'll put any cards to 1. It just doesn't seem to be their way. They've had 3, am I wrong, 3 bans, or is it just the 2? Kabaji and Boat, and then the Law Stadium, and yeah. So maybe it's just 2, but in both instances, they've just banned things. English flexed their ability to dominate a TCG and control their own meta by introducing some lists. When we had the 4.5 format. But I don't, and in those, they limited cards. They limited cards twice, the English did. I don't think we're going to see that anymore. I think that they've aligned to do 1, then just cascade it to the TCG. And then the biggest thing people are calling for is a unified TCG, which again, that cascade method makes sense if we're going to become unified at some point. I am anti-unification, But because I just think just trying to play catch up is weird, and somebody gets hurt in the process in terms of like player base. But you guys let me know how you feel in the comments below. Then we've got Stanky, good old Marshall D. Teach. Y'all know how I feel about him. If you don't, now you do. Marshall D. Teach, Blackbeard himself. I could go on and on about this card, but the biggest thing is this card enables Doffy. Again, you don't really lose card value because you're playing cards like Weevil and Gecko Moria and Law. If you play any of those and you bounce something with Law or the other two, you're going to add something to your hand. You're losing 0 value even though you put one card on the top of your deck, but you're enabling the leader ability to play a card off of the top of your deck for free, generate value while also swinging 7 and maximizing your Dawn usage. So you can play Honker, still use your Dawn and your leader, or just go super aggressive. This card enables so many plays. I think this card is a problem. I think it makes sense. Before, Doffy wasn't doing phenomenal. Then everybody introduced 4 Teach, and then the deck really started to thrive in OP09 for Asia once they introduced Marshall D. Teach, which we just took over. I do not like Marshall D. Teach. All thoughts aside, I don't think this card. I think this card is beyond powerful. I think, the biggest thing, I'm playing Rayleighs on Shanks, and I'm popping the Teach, because you have to respect Teach. That's how strong this card is in Doflamingo. People will use their bounce law to bounce Teach over bouncing a 4-cost body, because that's how important Teach is in these games. I think that speaks the volumes. I think Teach makes sense. I think a lot of other people have been on that vision as well. Now, Blackbeard, you're familiar with the leader, but in OP10, he really, before EBO2, in OP10, he really took up a huge size of pie for the topping charts. And a big driver for that is this card here, because then now they have a 5 Dawn play, and his effect is this character cannot be removed from the field by your opponent's effects at all. You can't do anything about it. Nothing. Not a single card can remove this guy. And then he has Activate Main. You may trash this character. Draw 1 card, replace his value, then play up to 1 Blackbeard Pirates type character with the cost of 5 or less other than Kuzan from your trash. So you load up your trash with your cards, or even countering, and then so you could bring back a Burgess. You can bring back these other pieces that you've lost while also generating value. So you can play him and just use it to do that on Activate Main. Or you can play him, swing with him, then do that, replace it, give your opponent no character to try to remove, and then draw a card. And you just played something. And you could play, what's the one guy? The sniper guy. Yeah, you can play a sniper guy. Or you can play Burgess, or any of these other characters. And it really just the unremovable piece. So you can stick these, and now you have Burgess. You have Burgess who's sticky, and now you have Kuzan who's sticky. And Kuzan can also be traded out and generate you value by drawing you a card. So he's essentially a 1-for-1 while playing a card from your trash and possibly getting a free swing. This card could be hit. They're going into OP11, which means they no longer need the push product for OP10, which means they can still cascade the ban to us for OP11, allowing us to play this Kuzan for a format. But the counter argument is, of course, Kuzan and Blackbeard as a whole, because of Gurple, Lufffy has fallen out, and then aggressive decks like Doflamingo, or even we just saw Smoker win the finals. And people, I'm not even going to mention the card. Maybe I should mention the card. I might just edit this in. But Eustace Captain Kid. If Eustace Captain Kid's in here, I edited it in. Because everybody after, Smoker wins 1 and people are like, ban Eustace. I'm like, does that really make sense? You have a 9 life. You have a 9,000 power leader that heals himself. And you think Eustace. Useless Captain Mid's the problem? I don't know. But Kuzan is a problem. And I think that this is one of those cards. Blackbeard as a whole, the concept of it is like a Nami. It takes away your opponent from playing the game. And whenever there are things like that, you have to be very careful. Because if nobody can play the game, it's very unhealthy. And it drives players away. Oh, we just negate everything. Oh, every on-play card in existence forever has to be rethunk, and then like it makes 10 sets worth of printings pretty much worthless when things like that become dominant. And just the fact, again, of the negates. We see them adapting to it already. They have to change the printing of how they approach cards. I think that is slightly unhealthy. But, of course, it's adaptation. But I think decks like Blackbeard have to walk a line of, like, good but not great. Because otherwise, if it's tier 1 or, like, tier 0, it can create a very unhealthy environment in the TCG and just like overall like player enjoyment. Like, what if every game was Nami? What if every round of your event you played Nami? Think about that, and then think about that with Blackbeard. What if every round was just Blackbeard? And you're just like, oh, I'll play Burgess, I'll play Burgess, I'll play Burgess, oh, I'll play Burgess, oh, I'll play Burgess, I'll play Burgess, I'll play Tin Drop, I'll play Tin Drop. Great. Anyways, yeah, I think Kuzan is a problem that could be addressed. Then, of course, we got the Gurple Luffy. So, Gurple Luffy has been taking a huge size of pie in all the events since the introduction of EBO2. Now, and I've mentioned this, funny thing, like especially when we get closer to March and Japan has historically announced bans, people like to switch off the best deck and try to false something else is good. Like, did that with Saka, I feel like, once it came around, and then, he just got banned to try to maybe throw him off the scent that this deck is the best deck. However, I do feel like this leader is absolutely phenomenal. And I've said that, and a lot of people disagreed, but it's activate main once per turn, -2 Don. If you only have Straw Hat characters in play, set 2 of your rested Don cards as active. Then this leader gets plus 1,000 power until the end of your opponent's turn. So you can continually reuse Dawn, and you can have 12 Dawn turns plus a 6k leader. 12 Dawn turns plus 6k leader, and you can you get to reset these Dawn as active. Very cool. It's obviously dominating right now, and of course there's some really good cards. And then of course you play Eustace Captain Kid in it, which again optional, but Smoker. Also, optional. But this card, again, you get to go and do 12 Dawn turns with 6k leader for life. And it goes a long way. So, it's really gone to distance. We can talk about him separately, but he's really, again, taken up a majority. And he has a ton of flagship wins and is just continually racking them up. So, despite them just printing this set, they may, and I can't pinpoint any exact cards, I think. I think the leader itself is inherently strong, but they have pretty much committed to OP11 being the power creep set, where we start seeing cards just infinitely better and just power creeping previous cards we've seen. They're just printing better versions of those previous cards. So we'll do what we can with that information. But I think something in this could be addressed. Now let's talk about unbans. Cards that might get unbanned. First up, Sakazuki. And I think the market price reflects this dramatically. A lot of people have been buying these. I think the cheapest one out there now is like $40, $50. This card was $17. This card was $17, but okay, buddy. Moby is also another one. But let's talk about Sakazuki. So Sakazuki was hands down like the best deck out there. Sakazuki may have trouble with things like Doflamingo, because Doflamingo can aggro you in as a 4-life leader. It does get hard 4-life plus pudding. Yes, you can remove a lot of bodies consistently, but what does it do? What's the solution? Is it just still ban Saka and see how he does? He came out, he's been banned for a few sets now. We don't know his full power, but a lot of people seem to be rooting for him to be unbanned. I think, of course, it just goes to show power creep is real if they continue to, unban cards, because then they're just like, oh, we've printed cards that are way stronger than this now, and we just deal with it. But, so to be interesting, do I think he could be unbanned? No. No, I don't. But I don't want to be in a world where I get Gecko, Rebecca, Hina, Ama, Stage, all of that. Now, Moby, I think you can unban Moby. I think it also could just be maybe a marketing move for the ST22 Portcasty Ace and Whitebeard deck. Maybe not. It's supposed to be blue. We haven't really heard anything, but leaks are usually true. I think it's fine to unban it, though. Nobody's playing Newgate. The new decks didn't make any impact. I think it's fine. We got Great Eruption. I don't want to see this card unbanned. I own a lot of this card. I don't want to see this card unbanned. But Great Eruption, I mean, if you really think about it, Tempest Kick is just better Greater Eruption. But of course, Lucci would play both. But Great Eruption was a phenomenal card. If we want to answer, things like Doflamingo, Great Eruption is a great card. Great card for that. But yeah, Great Eruption is a great card for that. Let me know, what do you think is going to happen in March in the comments below. And if you stuck through it this long, if you found this content of value, you could do me a favor, hit the subscribe button. It helps me out a lot, and I will see you all in the next one. Now, overall thoughts. I think to some degree we're going to have to answer Doflamingo and Blackbeard. Now, one thing to keep in mind, when it comes to banning cards, and a lot of people get this confused, I think, and a lot of people take it like Banlist super personally. Oh, I'm so tired of losing to this deck. The biggest thing is you have to create balance in the force. You can't just be like, Doflamingo's gone, because then one other deck might rise up to take their place. You have to try to create balance like we did. Again, I think the English TCG did a great job after the second list that they issued, but it answered so many different decks and created such a diverse environment for a brief period of time, just because they made sure that when they executed a list, they didn't create a singular clear-cut deck that's just infinitely stronger than the others. And I think that's what we need to see here. Again, like, if you touch one thing, you might have to put your hand in another cookie jar just to keep things equal and not make something just super, super good. Because then we have, it defeated the purpose. So they have to be very thoughtful in the cards they do. And I think just Blackbeard, Gurple, and Doffy needs some sort of fine-tuning. And, they've done a similar approach where they're like, we're hitting 2 cards. These are it. Have a great day. So they're very conscious of that and trying to do that. So I think we'll see something similar to that as well.